At the end of last year, I noticed a surplus in videos that were talking about your 2026 New Year's goals and New Year's resolutions. And while this is to be expected, something that I found strange was that everyone kept referring to it as your 2026 rebrand. And diving further into some of the videos, I even saw some people saying that the way they were going to hold themselves accountable was by having a quarterly review every couple of months in order to see the progress they were making on these goals. And while I think it's great to have these aspirations for ourselves in the new year, and that's a very common thing that we do, why are we using business jargon as a way to express that? And of course, I feel like there's going to be people that think, oh, this is just a cute way of saying it, it's just the lingo. I disagree. I feel that the words we choose matter as they hold context and meaning. And this is showing that we either subconsciously or on a conscious level are okay with referring to ourselves as brands. And because words have meaning, we understand that a brand has something to sell. So if we're not a brand owner and we don't have a legitimate product, we are talking about selling ourselves. And once again, I just feel like people might be like, oh, it's not that deep. But I feel like we've said that so many times about a lot of different things over the past couple years that not only are we living in a completely different digital landscape than we had even 5-6 years ago, but a completely different world in general, to the point where people are even reminiscing on 2016 because of so many things that have changed just in the past few years alone. But back to my point, I genuinely think that this subtle change in the way that we're referring to our New Year's goals is a side effect of a few things. Number one is the state of the economy and influencer culture. Due to how the economy has been going and just how the world has been going post 2020, we understand, especially as members of Gen Z, that we are not going to have it easier than previous generations. I feel like all of us, if not most of us, know this, and we're still struggling with that ideology, especially when a lot of us did what was quote unquote right. You know, we went to school or some type of post-secondary education, or we started working, we were saving money, we were being responsible, and yet by the time that we finished school, not only were certain years taken from us because of the pandemic, but when we got out into the real world, you know, we're still not able to have the comfortable lifestyle that we thought we would based off of our actions. So when you compare that with what you're seeing online, you know, influencers receiving tons of PR packages or just being able to go here and there, they're making so much money in comparison to what they're doing. It is kind of normal that fosters a sense of resentment and a fact that it feels so dystopian when you're struggling to even put food on the table. And so I think that when you combine, especially even what we're seeing with stars like pop stars who are rebranding and taking a new form of creative direction in order to market themselves, and then they're having success, it very much makes sense why people feel like, okay, I need to just completely rebrand how I am online or just in real life in general in order to get what I want. And also, since we're able to see so much now, you know, we're able to see all these different types of lives, something like a rebrand kind of holds, that word holds the weight of wanting a new, just an entirely new life and an entirely new path that maybe the word goals kind of don't hold, if that makes sense. Because yeah, I think it's naive to say that people only kind of want one main thing as their goal, like a new job or more friends or just more money, more freedom, when we know that that exists, and even more than that exists for people online. It's like we want all of that, and therefore a life rebrand seems like it can hold the weight of a desire like that. The next thing that I think that is contributing to why we're calling it a rebrand is that we're seeing these brands everywhere. Nowadays, if you're on TikTok or just social media in general, it is extremely common to see the actual corporation brand comment or like one of the influencers or creators' posts. And what this does is this like exposes the brand to us even more. We're not just seeing ads on TV or in magazines or billboards like we used to in the past. We're seeing the ads not just like on social media even, but like them commenting makes it worse. And I feel like when you're so inundated with ads everywhere, that messaging of branding and just that word, I think brand just becomes more a part of your vernacular in general. I can't think of the word brand being used this heavily even 10 years ago. Like, even with PR packages being sent out to like the OG beauty gurus, I still feel like the word brand and rebrand was not this heavily pushed until we started seeing so much more of this behavior online. The next reason I think that is contributing to this has to do with time. And this one is a more of like a hear me out. This is the one that I feel is kind of more personal to myself, or the most personal one. But there's something about the way we are perceiving time now. It feels very different post 2020. People nowadays are making it seem like even being in your early 20s is old. And I'm sorry, I don't recall being in school, like elementary, middle, high school, and people thinking that adults in their 20s were old. Nowadays, I know it kind of seems like it started off as a joke, but I really do believe that some people think that you're old, like once you've gotten into your 20s. And because of this, I feel like that's causing pressure. That's one of the ways it's causing pressure to feel like you need to hurry up and get your life together. And once again, that word rebrand kind of feels all encompassing to make a 180 change, right? It feels like it can hold the weight of that. I also think that just by having social media and seeing how the trajectories of some people feel much more accelerated than our own causes us to feel like we're running out of time, and therefore we need like a 180 life rebrand in order to get back on track, when in reality we're comparing ourselves to people who, even if they didn't have the same starting point as us, they're at a different point now that is just allowing them to go and move faster. And I think that's like another reason why we're always kind of comparing ourselves and feeling less than. And finally, within this topic, I just feel that the world is growing more and more uncertain by the day. And this is something that I feel like we just didn't feel, not nearly to this extent, prior to 2020. And it kind of feels like, we started playing one game, and then as soon as we finished, or kind of close to the end, the whole game just flipped upside on itself. And now we're playing with rules that no longer count. And therefore, it just feels like as things become more unstable, we're kind of like, how much time do I really have in order to get what I want? I feel like I've already lost these years because things have changed, because I lost years during the pandemic, and therefore I kind of feel like I just need to hurry up and change everything rather quickly, because who knows how much time I have to achieve these goals with the way the world is going. And the final reason that I think we're using words like this is because we just have limited capacity these days for critical thinking and analysis. So even though this may seem kind of ironic because there's a lot of video essays and think pieces and people posting their opinions on TikTok, we're still really easily susceptible to just taking in whatever is kind of being pushed. By and large, when you factor in what you're going through in your personal life, plus all of the tragedies that we're seeing about the world, sometimes things can just feel like too much. And if something seems innocent enough, kind of just adopt it. And it's not until later on that we do have the capacity to think about it, more clearly, or somebody else brings it up, then we can really unpack what's going on. I'm kind of putting this video out a little bit late because I really have been thinking about it. I know there's a couple other people who have kind of talked about this and put their own take on it. And because of that, I am really grateful, because I was seeing more people talk about, hey, you need a rebrand, than people questioning it to begin with. And that kind of leads me to, okay, what can we do? I feel like the most obvious first step is to just spend less time on your phone. And I know that's much easier said than done, especially because everything now is kind of requiring some type of digital element, even if it, in years past was unnecessary. But I do think that when you are able to step away and get offline for a while, you're able to kind of remind yourself of the average trajectory of how things go. Not going to be able to fix absolutely everything in 1 year, and that's okay, and that's very normal. A lot of these people that are having such major changes happen for them very quickly, like I said previously, either had a different starting point and had different privileges that came with that, or they now have access to things that, in this time we don't. And as much as that can be difficult to kind of accept, I feel like having that acceptance allows for us to kind of release ourselves from those pressures. Also, like I was saying about just having that critical thinking and questioning why we are doing what we're doing, I really think we need to just challenge ideas more often. This doesn't always mean being the first person to speak on something, but just allowing yourself personally to kind of sit and really marinate on a topic like, yo, why is this happening? Where is this coming from? Like, what connections can I make? Because I do think that's very important to do that on your own before you start hearing it from other people, because especially with the rise of AI, it is very important that you keep up with your own abilities to be able to critically think for yourself. Like I said, I did see some people call out this trend, and I'm so mad because I saved these videos on TikTok, but I didn't actually accept the terms and conditions, so I can't get back on my account. But I saved a video of people who said that they work in marketing, and they were like the first people that I personally saw to be like, why are we using these words? And I was like, thank you, because I felt like I was honestly losing it. And it was with that, those people and their expertise, they were able to give, another side and critique of this that I think is really important. I think we just need to stop feeding into what everybody is selling us. And this goes even past this topic of people telling you you need a rebrand. If I was a brand owner, like of a major corporation, I would love this, because what this is telling me is that if people are feeling like they need to rebrand themselves every single year and just do like a complete overhaul of their life, that means that if I'm trying to sell you something, that you're probably more susceptible to taking that bait year after year after year. Because if you're so focused on changing something so drastically in 1 year without really just like going slow and thinking about, hey, is this really what I want for myself? You're probably going to be unhappy with something later down the line. And that's when a brand can come in and either directly or through somebody else offer you a product or an idea or some type of solution, because you were not able to really sit down and think about things clearly from the go. And I know some people that are talking about having a rebrand for themselves are being critical about what they want out of the year and what they want from themselves. I'm not saying people are all just kind of saying like, I'm gonna rebrand my life and watching like the same video on how to do that and taking like somebody else's goals and making them their own. I still think there is a component of critical thinking that we need to do. And that first step, I think, comes from just not buying everything physically, metaphorically, that people are selling. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you in the next one, where we're going to unpack more things that have to do with the intersection of identity and technology.